Welcome to Crowning Around, where every woman wears a crown, whether she's 17 or 70. I'm Joan Caliendo, and this is the space where magic happens when women empower women. Each week, we'll dig into topics like ageism, stepping into your power, and everything in between. And today, we're kicking it all off with a queen in her own right. Me, Ms. New York Senior America.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to episode 26, or perhaps episode 1, season 2, since I just recently celebrated my 1-year anniversary here at the podcast.
Congratulations.
So I'm going to say, let's say episode 1, season 2. That sounds more accurate. Good evening. We're trying to begin this evening talking about a lot of things that are very near and dear to my heart, which is, of course, education and schools and community. But we're calling the show Royal Succession because my guest this evening is, again, another Carle Place alum. Is it possible that this little hamlet turns out all of these jewels? The answer is yes. So I say to you, we're calling it Royal Succession because not only is my guest the valedictorian of the class of 2007, but so too was his brother, the valedictorian of the class of 2009. So we begin with a little retrospective. First, I'd like to say, I don't think there's anyone that can disagree with me when I say the World Cup changed us. I think we look back at the World Cup and say we looked at countries in a different way. Certainly the people who visited here thought, wow, America is really wonderful. And the people are nice. And the ranch dressing is amazing. I also have to say that what we saw at the World Cup was, brotherhood and community and a sense of togetherness. And that was something I think we really needed to see. So I was so proud of our country for hosting the games, but also, of course, for New York and New Jersey for turning out a beautiful final at the Meadowlands. From Jameis Winston, who went around the country, whoever hired him, brilliant, to become culturally aware of the Norwegians or the people from Cape Verde or the people from Spain and Argentina. That was fantastic filming. And of course, we loved to see the pride that people had for their countries and that each goal was emotional and tearful, and they embraced the teammates and their people and sang songs, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful time for our country and for the people who contributed to making that a very safe and wonderful experience. So on tonight's episode, we're going to begin with a story of immigrants who came to this country from Taiwan to seek a better life, and that is the parents of my guest this evening, Mr. Charles Huang. Welcome, Charles.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. If we could put up the lovely picture, Bobby, of Charles and his family, where his mom and his dad and his brother Richard were celebrating a very special birthday. And I believe this is in Lisbon. Yes, I don't want to say the number, but you should be proud of the number. So that's a beautiful, beautiful family photo of, two parents that came here and raised two wonderful young men to become not only the pillars of their classes, but also for us to understand that they were young men to emulate and look up to, and we still do to this day. So the royal succession is not just based on academic prowess, but the royal succession is also talking about what is the special sauce that gets us to bring our sons to graduate of MIT, Richard, a graduate of Harvard. And we're going to dig into the debate that is the recipe that creates these tremendous young men. And I use the word debate because Charles, one of my star pupils, was always up for a good debate with me in our AP US history class. And we always took the opposing sides. I don't know if that was natural or if that was just to make for good classroom debate, but we were always on the other side of the equation historically. And we just really got into some very, very great dilemmas in U.S. history. I being a Jeffersonian, he being a Hamiltonian. You guys probably know more about Hamilton now because of the Broadway show. But at the end of the day, those two founding fathers and their disagreements made for an amazing experiment called the American democracy and what followed in our 250-year anniversary. So tonight we're going to go into a short bio of Charles. And I'm going to start by saying he began his career in tech at a small startup company that you may have heard of called Google. That's where he started, at Google. You moved to San Francisco, did you not?
That's
Okay,
right.
small little upstart company. You may have heard of it. And then he moved on to Spotify, which I'm happy to tell you all we are on Spotify, as well as YouTube and Strong Island TV and wherever you stream your services. So this evening you may be listening to us on one of the locations that Charles was working at. And he is currently employed by Meta, as is his brother, which we'll get into as well. He is an open-minded young man. He is a critical thinker. And he proclaims to me, as he did at the 20th reunion, that some of the ways in which he deals in business is due to his social studies, toolkit, where we taught children to be critical thinkers, open-minded, and something that we've lost a little bit in society, to have open civil discourse, where I may not agree with you, right? But I will respect what you're saying. And I will also listen to the points that you raise and perhaps agree with them at a later time. But I'm also hoping you're listening to my points and also thinking that in a respectful way we can disagree and maybe come to amends and a solution down the road. He is a humanitarian. He is a patron of the arts. And he creates this balance in his job today. And I would love to tell you that we met again at his 20th reunion, which was Game 5 of the Knicks.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
It was a very emotional night.
Pivotal game.
And Charles asked me to sign his yearbook again 20 years later. And I looked back at what I wrote, and you said to me, what? What did you say about what I wrote in your yearbook?
Class act?
Yeah, class act, scholar and a gentleman. And that I said, please always remain true to your values. And you did.
Yes.
So what do I write in it now? Good luck. I hope you do well. That's done. So here we are 20 years later in the studio, and we welcome Mr. Charles Huang. So we're going to start with you're very welcome. We're going to start with our questioning, which is a portion of the show called The Queen's Court. And in question number 1, I thought it would be great to hear from Charles in this viewpoint. What are the expectations that were placed on you by your family, and what were some of the ones placed on you by your educators, and where did the intrinsic drive come from? Yeah, that's a good question.
Oh, yes. I have a lot to say on that.
Please.
First, I did want to start off by saying that the World Cup is definitely very defining.
Yes.
My wife is actually a huge fan of Erling Haaland, and I know he kind of took over everyone's world.
He did.
Yeah.
That big Norwegian Viking.
There's a lot of just energy, just aura emanating about him.
I did love him too.
Someone
and
I
the
really
rowing.
look up to. Yes.
And the rowing.
Boop, boop,
boop, boop, boop. I loved it.
So yeah, I did want to say, to start off by thanking all of my educators, as well as my parents, for everything they've done for me, because I would be remiss if I did not mention this at the bat. I also did want to thank a lot of my friends that were very supportive in school, and I'll get into this within the question. So what were some of the expectations
from your
that
family?
were set with me?
From your family,
From the family. This might be very surprising to hear, but my parents never really put a lot of pressure on my brother and I to really excel in academics. The things that they would actually really make sure we understood were what it means to be an honest human being, a resourceful human being, a compassionate person, a humble person. So they really focused on contents of character as opposed to performance of an individual.
Scores, grades.
Yes, and the only thing I would say, they never pushed us, but they did let us know that they moved to the United States to try to give us a better life and opportunity. That was it. So they never said like you're the first in your family to go to college within the U.S. or things like that.
Right.
But they really wanted to make sure that we were good civil citizens, and that was the thing that was most important.
I love that.
So my parents did. They put a lot of expectation on how to be a good human, and our family was also very supportive of that as well. So a fun story is that my grandparents would actually come visit us during the summers, and a little fun game they would play was for every 100 we would get on a test, we had to save the exam, and they would give us $1 if we gave them like a spelling bee, like a spelling, test or whatnot. And we would save all of those dollars to buy video games.
Oh, wow.
So we would always try to make sure when there was a test, there was an opportunity for us to inch closer to getting some sort of video game that we really wanted to buy.
Risk and reward.
Yes. So the next question here is like expectations that were placed on us by our educators. The funny thing is, what I remember the most about our educators were there is life outside of Carle Place. There is life outside of the town you grow up in. There's life outside. There's so much that the world is going to offer for you, and don't just be closed-minded in what you see now. And that was something that I thought was really important and extremely insightful to share with us as young children growing up.
Sure.
And I saw a similar pattern when I was at MIT as well. A lot of our educators would say, it's not just this school, it's not just this city, there's a whole world out there, and you really should keep an open mind of what you're going to see. Mr. Morris, I remember, would always say, think globally, act locally. Yeah. So there was a lot of education around the world is a lot larger than you think it is. There's a lot more out there that you're not aware of, and you should be humble and open-minded for what you're going to learn.
And not easy when you live in a small town, right? The size of 4,000 people, a hamlet, and they do think that the world revolves around them when they're 14 and 15-year-old young men, right? And they're doing well athletically, and you're in the paper, and all of the above. So I love hearing that refreshing idea, but maybe part of that is born of the fact that you did hear it in the classrooms, but your parents crossed many oceans to come here, and they know of a different life experience. And although that you may not have been born there, they wanted to share with you that there is a whole other world out there. And how they found Carle Place is amazing to me. How they found that location to raise you guys. But I guess the whole concept of your place, my place, Carle Place, another Mr. Morris expression served you very well, right?
And it was, my parents, my extended family as well. There was so much support that was along the way. And I'd be remiss if I did not thank like my entire family.
That's wonderful.
As well. And the third part of your question was the intrinsic drive.
Yes. Where is that coming
from? So what
from?
drove that? Okay, I think you're also going to be surprised by this.
I think I am.
The thing my brother and I were most motivated on were how can we start getting to play video games as quickly as possible. And what I would always say to my brother is, go home, finish your homework, and as soon as we're done with our homework assignments, we can start playing video games.
Now, what was the big game back then?
Halo.
Halo. Okay.
Yeah, so we really enjoyed.
Yeah,
we really enjoyed playing video games, and that was really like the goal. But later on, I think when we started to get report cards back, my brother and I realized that our natural strength was in academics.
Yes.
And I think we started to see, let's lean into this and see how far it can take us. I don't think we realized just how far it really could open doors for us, alongside with the opportunities that our educators would provide for us. But that honestly is maybe like slightly disappointing.
I hope
answer.
Parents are listening to this. The whole goal was to get home and get the new episode of Halo. Did you do Assassin's Creed too? Was that kind of,
we played that
has a little
well.
history in it that I like.
The funny thing is, I think a lot of the top students really enjoyed playing video games, and we would get together and we want to play video games together, and we would maybe semi-share some topics of something that was going on in school. But the main drive is usually how could we just spend a lot of time playing video games.
But here's what you're not hearing. That was after homework was done, right? After the focus of what was expected was done, right? Because Charles's parents are here this evening, as is another esteemed educator friend of mine, Mr. John Kafer, a physics educator. So we're at full house tonight. So anything that he's saying, we're going to catch him if it's not accurate. But because we know video games are important, especially to young men. But when it becomes the most important thing.
So that's not good. That's not good.
Right. The switches and were you part of that early generation that had those little...
That was later when I had graduated.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was in college. I had graduated from college at that point. Yeah.
Was there a lot of video game playing at MIT?
There was.
I'm shocked.
There was. Yes. there was a lot of video game playing. However, we knew we were there to graduate, to
Yes.
study.
Yes.
And that was definitely, there were some folks, I had some classmates that were absolutely brilliant. They needed to spend zero time studying and could play as many video
came
games as
easy
they
to-
wanted. Yeah.
So
but
that's
for
your
me, that was not,
downtime.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was our way to relax. I do remember there was a winter break when I had come back from the first semester,
Mm-hmm.
and I just started playing this game called Diablo 3 for 3 days straight. And I remember my father came in. I thought he was going to say, Charlie, you should really stop playing video games. But he actually said, I know you've been really stressed in school. Use this as an opportunity to decompress. I hope that you can feel better. Yeah. Like my dad didn't even need to talk to me that much. He just knew that
He knew.
I was very stressed from school. And this is a
Right.
way for me to like release my pressure.
I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. It just
Yeah.
didn't overcome you. You didn't have that personality, that addictive personality that where
Yeah.
it became your whole focal point.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you have to see that as a parent too, because right, you have to know your kid and know that okay, we get it. So
Yes.
I don't know that the message is he became valedictorian because he was good at Halo. I don't know that that's the message, and I certainly didn't expect that. But I am saying decompression is good, right?
Yes.
Stress, mental
Yes.
health, which is something we definitely didn't talk about
That's right.
when you guys were coming up. You
That's
know,
right.
if everybody was stressed and the APs were coming up and you guys were nervous, we were like, deal with it. I don't even know that we had advice. We definitely didn't have sessions where you petted a dog and we served you hot cocoa. We had none of that.
But you did know when we were feeling under intense
did.
pressure.
We
And
did.
I think our teachers were amazing in letting us know that it's not all about the grade.
No.
It's about just like learning the content and how it's going to apply to your life. Right.
Agree, but
Yeah.
we also knew it was an avenue to get you to the next level because
That's right.
back in your day,
That's
the
right.
SAT scores and those
That's
AP
right.
exams were so monumental in getting you into the schools that you deserve to be into, right?
Yes.
And it's such a competitive world, and you're coming from a very small school. So
Mm-hmm.
we knew, you getting those fives on those exams and you acing the SATs and
Yes.
or ACTs, whichever
Yes.
you
Yes,
did.
yes.
That was something that would take you to the next level.
That's right.
It's lessened. We all understand that stress level that we put our students through has lessened, and those standardized tests have
Yes.
diminished in importance. I'm not
Yes.
saying right or wrong. I'm saying more whole package. I like the idea of interviewing kids and seeing if they're a right fit for the
Right.
school and so forth and so
Right.
on. But back then, you did live and die by those numbers.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so we knew that, okay? And to get a kid to go to Harvard or MIT from our small school was a big deal. And it's not because our small school didn't turn out great thinkers, they certainly did. It was because Long Island has such a pool of very, very affluent districts where those kids have been tutored since the day that they're born, and they're already, putting in their spot, their
Yes.
selection for where they want to go, and you're competing against them because they just take so many from so many regions. So
That's right.
amen to that. Okay, great stuff. So we're going to move on to question number 2, and it deals with MIT because I've been to MIT only to watch a football game for my son,
Really?
not to study there.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Very
And
nice.
all I said to my son was, "These kids are going to outsmart you and figure out how to win this game." But they did not. So Braun won over academics that day. What a lovely, lovely campus.
Yes.
Just beautiful, beautiful.
Yes.
But I kept thinking to myself, and it was interesting. It was senior day, and the kids that were on the football team, they were announcing their majors. They were
Yes.
like nuclear physics and kinesiology. And I was like, oh my God, I would never let my son play football. These were the brains we were dealing with. But anyway, your education at MIT provided you with competitive classmates, right? And there was also something that you said to me at the reunion that you didn't really understand how important it was to be nurtured at high school because when you got to school with these very competitive, bright intellectuals, they maybe didn't have that background, and it kind of showed up in other ways. So, what were some of the lessons that guided you towards success in the business world or the real world that you could attribute to your college education?
The thing I remember the most about school, about college, was I learned that failure is one of the best things that could happen to you in life
Interesting.
because failure leads to an opportunity for you to practice resilience. And I think resilience is the ultimate key skill in
I
life.
agree.
For someone to really fail at something, fall completely down, and have the energy and the drive to just say, okay, I messed up. Let me dust myself off
Right.
and get back and try again.
Right.
It takes an immense amount of courage, an immense amount of just power to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember arriving at MIT, and when I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
I took calculus, AP calculus, right? The
Okay.
last question on the AP calculus final is the hardest question you can possibly imagine.
On the final.
Yeah.
Okay.
That question was the warm-up question to my number one, like my first homework assignment at MIT.
Oh, boy.
So I remember thinking, I'm so screwed.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is going to be much harder than I
Right.
thought
That was
it
child's
gonna be.
play. Now
Yes.
this is the real world.
And so I arrived at MIT and I failed so hard. There were so many times where I just failed immensely. I remember
Wow.
there was a microeconomics final or like midterm that I took.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I could just do the same things I had done in high school, read the textbook, kind of just understand the concepts. And I took the exam and I got a 17 out of 100. And I remember just thinking, I've never seen a score that low before in my life. And I remember thinking, what should I do? And my next test, I said, okay, the next one, I know it's 6 weeks away. I'm going to start studying for it now. I'm going to look in the textbook, try to learn every concept that I can. I spent all the time, all the energy, no video games,
I was just
studying for
gonna
this
say.
exam. And I got a 34 out of 100. So I failed
Progress.
significantly. Yeah, that's like, I doubled my
You
score.
doubled
Yeah.
your score.
But then through that, I learned that I can't do things by myself. Like I actually really need to ask for help. And I need to find people in the class that understood the topics and teach me.
Study
And
groups.
it reminded me of this old adage, like, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to go far, go with others, right? So I started to learn that if you don't know something, you should ask someone for help. Or if you need assistance, you should ask someone for help. So I started asking the folks who really understood the concepts. Luckily, my friends were brilliant individuals.
I'm sure.
And they were very patient. They would spend time with me, teaching me the concepts. And I wound up passing the class. I won't say what my final grade was, but I did pass the class.
Okay,
And there
important.
was a saying at MIT, which is C's get degrees. But yeah.
C's get
Yeah.
degrees.
So
C.
yeah, that was something where I failed so hard. And then I realized that the important thing was just not giving up.
Right.
Realizing that I could still overcome this. It's a small setback.
Okay.
And there's a lot more ahead in life that I could look forward to. But yeah, that was something I will absolutely never forget. And our teachers, our educators would see how hard we were trying as well. And they would encourage us to to continue to invest and try to learn more. I remember this happened both at MIT and at Carle Place. There were two educators that I remember, Mrs. Avijaneda.
Rest her soul.
Yeah, God rest her soul.
Yes.
The day after I learned about what colleges I'd gotten into, I was so tired I fell asleep in the classroom.
In Spanish.
And then I remember my classmates trying to wake me up, and then I didn't wake up actually, but my classmates told me, Mrs. Avijaneda told us, let Charles rest. He's been working very hard.
Oh.
And then the same thing happened at MIT. I was in this class. It was called Management Communication. Professor Lori Breslow. She taught me a lot of key skills like public speaking, giving presentations. I fell asleep in the class one day too. And she came around and she tapped me on the shoulder and she didn't scold me. She just said, Charles, like, do you need to go home and rest? I know you've been working very hard. That was another moment like I'll just never forget in my life. When you are working hard, people will notice it and they'll find ways to try to help you as well. So yeah, those were like lessons that I
Yes.
remember learning from MIT, and how they applied to the business world was at MIT. It was probably one of the only times in my life where I would be given a task, like a homework assignment, a test, and I would absolutely have no idea how to get to the answer. Like
boy.
questions seemed impossible. But when I graduated, nothing seemed impossible because I would have a way to think about how to get to the answer.
Troubleshooting.
Yeah, because
critical
MIT like
thinking.
threw us into impossible situations.
Right.
My final question at the final of our biology exam was, how do you cure cancer? And I remember just saying, like, how can you ask a 20-year-old student
Right.
that?
Right.
But we had ways. We had ways
Yeah.
of how to dissect the problem and get to the ultimate solution. And the other thing I learned from my time at MIT was what my superpower was, what I was really good at. And I learned that I was really good at bringing people together, whether it's for work and for fun. So I remember for fun, the goal was we always wanted to make sure everyone was free for the party on Friday. And
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that all the homework assignments were done. And I would have certain classmates that wouldn't know how to get to the answer, but I knew that I knew the people that would know the answers. So I would bring everyone
networking.
together and just say, okay, we're going to have a study group, and then these people are going to lead the class. And then the folks that don't know, like, we're all going to get together. There might be alcohol present. you know.
Maybe.
Yeah. And then we would all get together and have a good time while we were
Right.
learning.
And release.
And the thing I didn't appreciate, but I really do now, is there were certain classmates that were just okay to give us the answers. But there were
I
certain
see.
classmates that would only give us the answer if they knew we were spending the time to learn it.
I
They would
see.
actually refuse to give us the answer key if they knew we were just going to copy it. And that was a really great lesson.
That's an
of just-
eye-opener.
Yeah, so I really appreciate my friend who did that, Nathan Lee. He actually told me, I will not give you my homework assignment unless you actually spend the time to learn this.
Oh,
And
that's
that was
wonderful.
something I actually was able to take with me into my professional life and as within my academic life as
See,
well.
it served you well because
Yes.
if you think of college students today,
Mhm.
everything is group driven,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And you go on these message boards
Yes.
and you even comment on each other's commentary as
Mm-hmm.
part of the assignment. And the ability to share information is rampant.
Yes.
It's just rampant.
Yes.
So also we're all learning online now. We don't even have to show up physically into a room and fall asleep.
Yes.
You know, so
Yes.
there are so many ways now for students to learn, but the way that you did, which was, much more simple, created a groundwork for you that you took into the business world, which is very ethical if you look at it. Not that I'm saying cheating is rampant and it's unethical the way students are preparing today, but I'm saying there's so many more ways for them to be able to get to the answers versus troubleshooting and critical
Yes.
thinking and coming up with solutions in a group. And I also have to say this, you were left to your own accords to figure out how you were going to broach the subject with someone who knew the concept and how you were going to have them help you.
Right.
Now everything is in such a group that the weak link kind of gets carried along.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I don't love it, and I'm also going to say that the team mentality is now just common practice in your job.
right.
Everybody talks about the team that they're on, and their team
Yeah.
is so demanding, which we said of Richard, which
Yes.
is why he's not here this evening.
Yes.
And that whole team mentality is, are you as good as the weakest member on your team, and how do you carry that person along? So your training at MIT really brilliantly helped
Yeah.
you to segue that into your
Yes.
career, which I love. I sound like I'm bashing education today. I'm just saying with certain new means of getting information, it's just
Yeah.
an easier and not.
I mean, there were a lot of tools that
lot
I
of
mean,
tools.
you and like even Mr. Cavo would share, and I would bring that into school and work as well. Like for example, I remember Ms. Caliendo, you would always say you should be firm, fair, and consistent
Always.
with everyone, right?
Always.
So from that, I learned that I should treat everyone fairly. I should not give preferential treatment, whether it was in school or at work. There are
Right.
certain times where like certain opportunities could be given, but you had to think about how to be equitable, how to be fair with everyone that's involved. And the other thing I remember from Mr. Cavo's class, there was something he taught us called free body diagrams. And free body diagrams, it was kind of like you draw a square
Okay.
on a slope, like a hill.
Yeah.
And the point is you need to understand all the forces that are acting on it.
Okay.
Forces could be things like gravity.
Right.
It could be things like a rope that's pulling it. And that kind of taught me to learn about what are the things behind every person. Do they have pressures
Right.
from finances? Or
Right.
do they have pressures from family?
From
Are they
home.
struggling with health? And those are things to take into consideration when you're about to talk to someone, usually, particularly about a difficult concept or a difficult feedback to give, right?
Right.
But to understand exactly what's behind this person, they're not completely a good or bad individual,
Right.
but they're battling with their free body diagram, all the forces
I love it.
that are like acting
I love
upon
it.
them.
That's a very mature way to look at things too.
Yeah.
And it's when you say firm, fair, and consistent, I still apply that
Yes.
to my lifestyle because you don't know the battles that people are going through.
That's right.
And to be fair means that you treat the best, the brightest, and the child that's struggling the hardest
Yes.
in the same way. There's no goading and there's no sugarcoating. Like this
Yeah.
is the objective that you have to get to
Yeah.
complete, and we may take very different patterns to get there. But
Yes.
at the end, this is the end game, right?
And I remember
So,
the thing that I
that's good.
respected the most about you, Mrs. Caliendo, is that you would get along with every type of student that existed in the school.
Lots of personalities.
Yeah, and that's not an easy task,
No,
you
it's
know,
not.
because you would get along with the athletes, the cool kids, the musicians, the ones who maybe focus a little bit too much on academics.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was the most inspiring thing.
Thank you.
Ever, because not everyone can do that.
No,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that's my personality. I
Yeah.
have a little bit of each one of you in me, and I
Yes.
could see that, right?
Yes.
You know, but the one that would drive me crazy was we won't say. So, Bobby, could we just put up the picture of the reunion? Because this is how Charles and I got reconnected.
Yes.
We were at the St. James Pub in Mineola, and it was his 20th reunion. Well, technically
19th, yes,
right?
it was a massive combined reunion.
And there
Yeah.
we are. Mr. Kafa's in the picture, and Mr.
Yes.
Capozzi, whom I've
Yes.
had on the show
Coach
as well.
Capozzi,
Coach
yes,
Capozzi.
legend.
And we're just looking at people that enjoyed each other, and we were so proud to see Charles, and not
Yes.
because of his successes monetarily, but because exactly what he said about what his parents taught him, that he is a young man of character and content and just a kind human being. And we were so happy to take that photo. And I said to myself, Charles, you have to come on this show because we need to spread this word.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here this evening.
Coach Capozzi was also such an inspiring force as well. Like he really
yes.
built. I realize now, actually, after watching one of your podcasts that he
When
was
he
on,
was on, yeah.
like a lot of the things that drive me about charity and like civics, they were inspired by him.
I know.
Yeah, and I remember in the start of our football training program, he would tell us to go sell these gold cards. They were discount cards that you can use for businesses, and
Local
I would just
businesses.
go and say, okay, we're going to fund like a beach trip that we want to take as the football team.
Always the
And we would go
entrepreneur.
door to door and sell these gold cards, and I would just tell them, do you know if you spend $10 on this, you'll save $50 later on. Just like having the thick skin to like knock on a stranger's door and say, would you like to purchase something that might make your life better? And yeah, Coach Capozzi was very inspiring. I remember he was a very funny individual too.
Yes.
He would always say, well, in practice, there would be times where I was a bit distracted and I wouldn't remember what the count was. Like if the quarterback says hike, is it on 1 or 2 that you start moving? And if I messed up, he would say, how could the valedictorian not know the count? But yeah, he's always like a very jovial man and just
Yes.
trying to make sure that like we were there to support one another. And I
Yes.
remember I always respected, he would have these like family breakfasts
Yeah,
before games. He
yeah.
wanted to make sure that all the kids and
Ate
parents
together.
knew each other, right? And those were things that I realized once I had left Carle Place, it's not the same
Yeah.
all throughout. Like he really cared about these human community. These were things that Carle Place
Yeah.
really cared about.
Yeah.
And those were things that I like to take with me whenever I host an event. I want to make sure everyone is feeling very comfortable.
believe
and
that about you.
Those are the things
Yeah,
that
you
we really
turnkeyed
remember.
it. Oh,
Yeah.
Wow, we're great.
Yeah,
That's
so just
great
great
to hear.
educators
Yeah.
that passed on great lessons
And
that
cared
Yeah,
about
not
people.
necessarily always from a textbook as well.
No.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that. Trust me. That's coming up in question number 3 as the time flies by. So I got an article that was mailed to me by our union newsletter. This is the NYSUT newspaper, and this is what we get monthly. And it struck a chord with me because of my guest this evening, because technology in the classroom today has created a platform for tremendous tension for both educators and parents and students as well. So I sent the article to Charles, and it's entitled Not Anti-Tech, Pro-Child. So how can we create harmony? So I wanted to show him some of the statistics that this article spoke on, and maybe listen to his feedback from a personal viewpoint, not from a business viewpoint. So in the article, it says 57% of parents feel that AI effects on cognitive development was their single biggest concern educationally, and that's from the Brookings Institute survey that was taken in 2025. So your commentary on that in the classroom now.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'll start by saying everything I share here is like my own personal
It's him.
viewpoints, does not represent Meta
Right.
in any way.
Right.
The thing that I think about this quite a bit with
Okay.
this new tool that's coming out
Yeah.
as AI and tools that are introduced to society. I think about like fire, like how fire could be used. You have to use tools the right way.
In
It
a
could be
positive
used
way.
to merge things. You can like melt things
Right,
together,
meld them,
or you
yes.
can use it to destroy
Right.
as well. And like understanding the right ways to use tools is a
Right.
very important human skill as well. I remember when Wikipedia first came out, when I was in 7th grade,
I remember.
the best teachers would not tell us to not use Wikipedia. They knew that there was this new tool that was being introduced, but Mrs. Kilgallen, I remember, my 7th grade English teacher would say, in your bibliography, when you submit your report, do not make every entry a Wikipedia link because you don't know if what's written on there is true or not.
Yeah.
So she made it a requirement that one source must be from the library. So we spent the time to go in and look at a published report because like there was real critical thinking that was applied into it. And that was a really important lesson.
It was.
That we were able to take with us because when all these new tools come out, there's like, it's not always working perfectly the first time, but practicing the real critical skill of critical thinking, using your mind is really important. It's a bit ironic. I think the motto of MIT is mens et manus, which is Latin for mind and hand. And it really makes me think about, I think for students to be successful or like, you know, take advantage of the tools that they have, the two greatest tools that we have are our minds and our bodies. So to practice your mind and to exercise the muscles in your body. I think back to when I talk about exercising the mind, I think about my grandmother-in-law. So my wife's grandmother, 90-year-old plus woman.
God bless.
And anytime we're talking about something that might deal with some quick math or mental math, she will not use a calculator. She'll actually say, hold on, let's take some time to think about 88 times 96. Let's do this really quickly.
Me too, Charles.
Yeah, so this is someone who is over 90 and wants to spend the time to just continue to use her mind.
As
The
she
woman is so respectable, sharp as a tack.
Nice.
Yeah. And I feel like that's the stuff that's really impressive. People who continuously use these gifts that like, you know, human nature have evolved for us. And even when it comes to the mind, both of my grandmothers, when they wake up in the morning, they exercise. They actually go around, they like kind of, you know, like tap along their body, making sure like all their muscles are moving.
Yeah, good.
So they're like spending the time. They're also both over 90, you know, so like doing these things that like really allow them to age gracefully.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And that's just like, exercising like mens et manus, right?
Yes.
Mind and hand, like really using these things in the best way
In
possible.
retirement, that is a priority. I'm being super serious.
Yeah.
Keep moving, keep thinking, keep
Yes.
applying, keep making a difference. I so certainly agree with you. And and I'm glad you brought up the Wikipedia in comparison to AI because it is a tool.
Yes.
When the internet came about, we were all panicked that you kids were going to go down rabbit holes that we would never recover you from, and the dark web, and you know, and there were some kids that did do that. And again, it's parental guidance that takes you to whatever demands, you know, are supposed to be placed upon you. But I love what you said about a tool because I certainly would have used AI for all of my lesson plans because those were hours I could never get back making those perfect lesson plans for my chairperson and putting them in plastic and delivering them to her every week. Okay, so here's another statistic, and maybe you can speak on this as well. 88% of teachers say their students' attention spans are getting shorter. Now, let me say that this was a survey by 3,000 teachers for the AFT. So there's a lot of variables that can be put into that survey. But my question is, do you think because of accessibility and social media and phones, et cetera, that, you know, shorter attention spans is just a norm now for people?
I think back to the story I was telling about when we used to write the critical lens essays
the
in your
critical
class.
lens, yes.
And I remember when critical lens was basically a report that we need to give on a specific topic in U.S. history.
Right.
And you said you would give us the guidelines of how to write this report. And I think we all negotiated, and you said you can make your final report double-spaced and 2 or 3 pages.
3.
But I
3 to 5.
remember you said, okay, 5 years ago, and you still had an example, the students used to write single space at least 3 pages.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, wow, there was like a lot more dense material that was there, a lot of critical thinking.
A lot of critical
However, I think that there is like this societal shift and like things are becoming more succinct, a little bit more condensed, a little bit more just crystallized in ideas now. I think back to the Declaration of Independence as well as like recent bills that are passed now. They're much shorter in brevity, and the words that we use to communicate have adjusted and evolved. slightly. So I think about, yes, the things that students can do to make sure that they still are able to keep attention spans. There's this term now that's constantly used called touch grass, which means to go
Touch grass.
outside,
Okay.
look at nature.
Physically.
Yeah, like just do something to remove yourself from all the stimulus of the world and just
Yeah.
like enjoy nature around you. And I remember thinking when you had your podcast with Mrs. Cerruti, I feel like we were so blessed to have such a good athletics program
Yes.
in Carle Place High School because we had all these options available to us
Yes.
after school. And there were people that were there to support both men's and women's
Yes.
sports,
Yes.
right? And these were things that taught us about failure, resilience,
Right.
grit, teamwork,
Right.
right? And these were things that we didn't appreciate enough at the time,
Your
to be
kids.
completely frank. Yes.
But we get it. But you're also hitting on 2 points that you're making me think of. One is because it was such a small school, you got to do everything.
We did everything.
You could be the star of
Yes.
the play the trombone, be
Yes.
on the football field, bring out
Yes.
the water for the basketball team. You
Yes.
could do it all at Carle Place.
Yes.
And do well academically and get into good schools.
Yes.
Beautiful thing. Of course, the best thing about Carle Place is its size, and the worst thing about Carle Place is its size.
Yes.
But we could argue that, and debate that, which we're not going to do because of time. But I'm going to say this as well. Charles also spoke to me at the reunion about perhaps pursuing a career in public service, right? Politically.
Yes.
And you are making a beautiful case for that because everything that you've said this evening is exactly what we need in leadership, right? You talked about content of character. That's a Martin Luther King objective that I will always stand behind. And I'm going to also say your open-mindedness, your collaboration abilities, your teamwork sense, your grit. If I don't do well and I fail, I'll pick myself up and do this over again. Like these are the things we need to hear from our leaders. And voila, right? New York City. This is what I'm trying to promote. So I have a little bar graph that I put up to publish the idea that we were going to be together tonight. Bobby, if you
Yes.
could put up that bar graph, I'd appreciate it because I'd love your feedback on this. So as I'm promoting the show all week, I had to come up with witty ways to get people to watch the show. And this was something that I found that I put up on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. I put it on LinkedIn.
Very nice.
And it says, what students remember most about school? The little orange square is what their teachers taught them, and the big green, tower is how their teachers, treated them and cared about them. And I said, please write your comments below. I got, 400 likes, but one student commented, I don't know if you remember Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
He's probably 04. And he wrote in his comment, "Thank you, Mrs. Caliendo, for always caring."
Yes.
That was all I needed to be fueled for today. So my comment to you is that an accurate bar graph?
It's very accurate.
It's very accurate.
It's extremely accurate. I mean, the stories that I was telling before, they focus on how the educators, you,
Right.
Mr. Kafa, like Mr. Morris, Coach Capozzi, Mrs. Kilgallen, how they made me feel like we were being cared for and walked us through very important lessons in life. I remember I wrote my college essay about failure as well. And the one example I will never forget to this day was a football game that we had against Oyster Bay. Carle Place versus Oyster Bay.
Yeah.
And our whole team, that whole week, we were so happy because we knew we were going to beat this team. They were, at that time, a weaker team. And we just thought this weekend is going to be a walk in the park. We're going to feel so great. And we developed a sense of hubris. We started to think, we're obviously going to win. Why should we practice so hard? And I remember the final second of the game, it was a tied score. It was 20-20. And during the last 3 minutes, there was an extra point field goal where they beat us by 1 point in the final second. And I remember just like sitting there on the field and just thinking, the game is not over until it hits 0. And Coach Capozzi was disappointed, but he got all of us together and said, let this be a lesson to you of in life, don't give up until the final buzzer is over. And I wrote about that in my college essay because it was something that really struck home with me. Yeah, like using these opportunities to better yourself learning about the importance of humility, not letting
Humility.
hubris get to the best of you. It's something that they talk about in the Odyssey right now.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So like, and even the Odyssey, I remember we were learning that story in 10th grade English class, and watching it in the movie theater, it was like a
It's all coming
flashback.
back,
Yeah,
right?
to all the things that we had to learn. And the last thing I'll touch upon on this topic of just education was, so ever since Erling Haaland like started to like rise up all this like
The
trending
big
teams
Viking.
within social media, there was also a topic of the Norwegian education system
Yes,
as well,
I read
and
that.
how there are parallels, things that they may do differently, things that they may do the same. And one thing that I really agreed with was not focusing on specialization too early on in
Okay.
early education. So what they talked about was how students, when they're growing up in Norway, they can play a multitude of sports.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the US, sometimes we may say, oh, you're really good at this. You should spend all
Right.
of your time
And your
on this.
summers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then what it does is it kind of forces you maybe into something you might not particularly like.
Right, right.
But I remember Ms. Cerruti was saying that Carle Place, because we were such a small town, you can try every sport.
Try everything.
Because we needed everyone to fill the slot.
We did.
But because of that, we were able to like intermix a lot of different skills together.
Yes.
And those things combine into like really powerful skills
That's true.
later on. Yeah, so I think that's something that really struck a chord with me as well. I remember when I was at MIT and I first joined the school to study aerospace engineering. I don't know if you remember this, Mr. K, because I love physics so much. And I realized that
God
the
bless.
topic was too difficult
Oh.
for me. So I remember laying in my bed and just thinking, what should I major in next? But I remember also thinking, how can I know what I want to do with my life at 19, 18 years of age? And there's still like so many years ahead, and I'm trying to make this very consequential and influential decision. I wound up just trying a bunch of different majors and eventually sticking with management science and learning that, yeah, like my superpowers were in communication, bringing
I
people
agree.
together. So that's what I started to gravitate towards. And yeah, these types of opportunities to think deeply about what's really important in life is something I really appreciated from what I was able to get from my education, both in high school and in college.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Because you're the person I would hire, not the kid that's the aerospace engineer that has no communication skills. I'm being very, very honest, who might have had the higher scores on every single exam, but to have a conversation is very difficult for a person like that who's so driven by numbers and abilities to do well. I mean, I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying the well-roundedness, you see this right here, is what we're looking for in the future. So that leads me to my final question for the evening, and that is, what could you say to the next generation of students is your ticket towards success for them? I mean, you said a lot of wonderful, wonderful things, but what could you leave my audience with in regards to the next level of students?
I would say failure and resistance.
I like that.
And sorry, resilience.
Resilience,
So embracing
resilience.
failure and resilience is something I think not a lot of folks have the opportunity to really learn quite a bit from and to take it in stride. No one is perfect. Everyone fails, but not everyone is able to react in the same way of, I messed up, that was tough, I'm going to get back up and do it again. And also being humble, just knowing
I
that
love
you
that
cannot
too.
do things all by your own. You can get some things done by yourself, don't get me wrong, but the really large scale things, the things that are going to really matter in your life, you need help. You need people to help, and you need to be able to know how to ask for help. Asking for help is actually a very difficult skill.
It's difficult,
especially
but it's
for
necessary.
high achievers or people who have been only met with success.
Yes,
And
I agree.
the last thing I'll say is remembering where you came from, just appreciating all the things that have been able to support you and get you to
Your
where
foundation.
you are now. Yeah, that's why I wanted to start this show by just thanking my parents, my family, my educators, my friends, the things that they've done for me, I'll never forget. I remember when I was running for student body vice president in high school, my classmates would spend their art class time to create a banner for me because I
Posters.
wanted to run for
Yeah.
vice president, and they put a poster in the front lobby, and they would actually say, Charlie, like, come look at what we were working on for you, right? And I remember thinking, I never asked you all to do this, but I appreciate it.
But that was their
so
strength
much.
too,
Yes.
right? While you
Yes.
were doing physics, they were in the art room for
Yeah.
hours on end painting.
Yeah.
I just love everything you said. It made me
Yeah.
think of two things as we close out the show.
Yes.
First of all, I remember his critical analysis. Everybody had to have a different one, and his was horizontal integration versus vertical integration for success in business. And it was kind of like a Rockefeller versus Vanderbilt versus
ExxonMobil,
J.P.
like, yeah.
Morgan.
Yeah.
And, he came to me to go through his rough draft. And I have to be honest with you. I said, Charles, this is way beyond what I thought we were going to have a conversation on, because I thought we were going to go back and forth, captain of industry, robber baron, whose way would be the most
Yes.
successful. These are
Yeah.
some topics that we talked about. And I said to myself, this kid's onto something, because he's really debating in his head two ways to get to the final product, right? Which is what he's saying. But I also have to say this, when you're met with failure, it's not an easy thing. And when you're rejected, or when people don't believe in you and you're doing what you love, it does always come back to your core and your foundation and the love that your parents gave you and the setting that they created for you. Because some people, when they fail, can't pick themselves back up, right? And some people, when they fail, can't ask for help. And when you stop believing in folks, they don't feel the value, and then they lose their worth. And
Right.
you're saying that the opposite happened, like you learned from it, you were resilient
Yes.
from it, and you picked yourself up. But that always comes back to, and here's a quote, 90% of your education begins in your home. And that is the truth. And we were just the guiding lights to take you to the next level. But these people are the people that created the foundation. So once again, thank you for creating
They were
two very special young men.
It
at Carle
reminded me
Place.
of your stories. Reminded me of two more stories of in high school. There was the day after I found out I had gotten into my college. So I was very tired. I was falling asleep all the time, right?
Not in
And-
my class.
Yeah, because your class is 8th period. I remember that. It was end
No,
of
it's
the day.
because
There's
I was
no
very
way.
exciting.
Yeah, and first period class was biology, AP biology, and I was late that day. I think I overslept. It
Okay.
was my fault, honestly, and I got into class about 5 minutes late. We had a substitute teacher.
Okay.
We had a substitute teacher, and he said, "Excuse me, sir, you need to go to the principal's office because you're late." And my classmates, God bless my classmates, they said, "Do you know who you're talking to?" They basically said, "This is the valedictorian of our school. He just got accepted to all these schools. You cannot talk to him this way." And I remember saying, "Thank you so much, guys, but
But I
it's
am
okay.
late.
Yeah, I'm late. I'm going to go to the principal's office." And I went to the principal's office, and it was Mr. Barada, the assistant
Yep.
principal, is usually the one who deals out
Right.
punishment.
He's the
enforcement.
bad cop.
And then Mr. Barada's like, "Charles, what are you doing here?" I
I've
said,
never
"Mr.
seen you here
Barada, like, I was
before."
late to class. I'm really sorry. It's been really tough lately." And he just said, "Hey, you want to come to my office and just have a chat?" You know?
Wonderful.
And he's just talking about, things his kids are up to, how
How
he's
many
really
goals
excited.
he scored in lacrosse.
Yeah, like what he's looking forward to for all of our classmates that are graduating the senior
It's
class.
wonderful.
And I just remember thinking, I went back to the classroom afterwards, and I went up to the substitute teacher and said, "I'm really sorry about that. I'm sorry for the way my friends reacted, but, thank you for just being fair with me."
Firm
And I
fair.
remember going and talking to my classmates afterwards and just saying, "I really appreciated what you did, but don't do that again."
Don't do it
like, yeah.
again. I got to take
Yeah.
my lumps.
Yeah, and then the last lesson, when you're talking about like family and how it all starts with, a recent story I learned from my grandmother that really showed the light of appreciating what we have now was, I was asking my grandmother, she grew up during the Japanese occupation of
Okay.
Taiwan, so it was like a very rough time. And I asked her, "Grandma, what was it like before there were light bulbs and electricity and refrigerators?" And I remember telling her, sometimes when I'm going to vacation, I worry about the things in my refrigerator that might spoil. I might maybe move them to the freezer. I'll start using some of the ingredients more. And I asked her, "What did you do when you didn't have refrigerators in the past? How would you store your extra food?" And she gave me a response that floored me. I just didn't know how to respond to it. She said, "Charlie, we never had extra food.
No.
There was no such thing as extra food. We just tried to find what we could every day and hope that next day is better."
Better.
So I remember just sitting there for 10 seconds straight, and I didn't know how to respond. And that made me realize how well I have it now. The fact that my grandparents were able to create a situation where my parents could come from Taiwan to the United States and put us in a situation where we have electricity, running water, refrigerators, air conditioning.
All the necessities.
Yeah. And those were things that we had taken for granted. We thought were normal and should happen, should be there in every home. And these were things that our ancestors never had when they were growing up. And they actually were growing up like in times of like strife,
turmoil.
Yeah, and like people were like taking advantage and bullying them, right? But I was able to grow up in this like very nice, protected hamlet with parents that loved me and cared for me, and educators that looked out for me and cared for the
And
hardships
friends and
that
family.
all these people that were trying to protect me. And I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that
Yeah,
until
you
I
do.
graduated. I went to MIT. I failed, just fell flat on my face.
And now
So
here
many
we are.
student groups that did not accept me, so many tests that I like did not pass, so many jobs that I've applied to that I've been rejected from.
Good to hear.
I've applied to over 1,000 jobs, and I've been rejected by more than 90% of them.
Okay, I
Yeah.
have to close on that because that's worthwhile hearing too. So
Yeah.
I just have to say thank you from the bottom of my heart because this was stuff I wanted to hear and I wanted all of you to hear. So I just have to get rolling to say who's my next guest
Yes.
in 2 weeks. So moving forward on my royal invitation, we will be here on August the 11th. And my next guest, Bobby, if you could put the picture up, is a lovely young woman named Donna Siriani, that is the CEO and founder of something called Moving Forward Strategies. And Donna and I met at a Habitat for Humanity
Oh, very nice.
event in Brentwood, and we discussed the transitioning away from education. She was a biology teacher. So she now has this wonderful program called the 1111 Reset, which is a strategy based on monthly online membership programs for those that are transitioning. And she doesn't just mean transitioning from job to job. It can be from a marriage. It can be becoming empty nesters. It can be a new location, a new city. And she has this wonderful program that is featured often on Channel 12 in the Be Well segment. So she will be on my first show in August, and we have a lot to talk about and compare and contrast. And she's going to give me a little test on anxiety levels, what presses my buttons, and how to, get over things like that. And as we age, there's much more anxiety than there used to be because you know what can go wrong. So as we enter the month of Leos, right, August, how fitting that we explored leadership, empowerment, and now moving forward. So I say to my teacher friends, enjoy the remainder of the summer. Sleep in. Pee whenever you want to. And do not go towards the back of the Target store where it says back to school. Don't do it. So I thank you, Charles. I thank you for bringing your family this evening. Mr. Kafer, we appreciate you being in the studio this evening.
If I also could, I wanted to
Please.
thank all of the educators out there, all of the teachers, all the
All of
administrators,
them.
past, present, and future. You are all extremely underappreciated, and you do support a lot of the foundations of a successful society. I think these are things that we don't appreciate and
Hear,
realize and compensate financially enough. Yes.
Here, here.
Yeah,
Not
those,
gonna
those
hear
are
us say
things.
different.
Some of my classmates now are educators, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of because I
Wonderful.
know that they're going to take the same lessons that we were able to learn and pass them on
turn
to
key
the next
that.
generation.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening, and we'll see you on August 11th. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.